The Calgary Stampede has officially started, and wow, there is a tremendous amount of support and momentum and just patriotism within Alberta right now. All the politicians, every single one, is flocking to Alberta to try to gain some political points, but it's not really working for everybody except for Pierre Poilievre, since now this is where he's going to be an MP in Alberta. He is welcomed and embraced with open arms, whereas Mark Carney is not. In fact, Mark Carney is being trolled for even appearing in Alberta wearing a cowboy hat, the same way that Justin Trudeau did. Also, Danielle Smith dropped a bombshell of a video that really shines a light on separatism and how Alberta is just done with Ottawa, which again is no surprise to Albertans' reaction to Ottawa politicians, specifically Liberals, showing up at the Stampede. And then in other news, you also have a small town in New York begging for Canadians to come back, allegedly. So yeah, there's a lot to take a look at in this video, and I hope you stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, you know where I'm going with this. It'd be awesome if you guys took the time right now. It's free to do. Come on, it's free. Let's fight the tariffs of YouTube and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Most of you watching, 60 or 70% of you are not subscribed, but you keep coming back for more juice. So just freaking smash the subscribe button. Let's get it over with. And maybe one of these days I'll finally shut up. Unlikely, my wife would tell you I'll never shut up, but maybe I will one day. And without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with the fact that Montreal is now spending millions on safer firefighter equipment.
The city of Montreal is investing nearly $10 million over the next 2 years on safety equipment for firefighters. That money will be spent on buying new gear and washing and decontaminating their equipment. Firefighters are exposed to a lot of dangerous chemicals as they work. And 5 years ago, international guidelines recommended washing equipment after every fire. Montreal started doing it this year.
You know, we welcome that investment, but it's really the investment due to the minimum necessary in order to start to protect our firefighters. And, you know, I did read the press release, and I did see how the employer says, you know, it's an absolute priority for firefighter health and safety. This is still something we've been discussing for 5 years with the city, and what finally got the city to move was a complaint to the CNSST last fall. So the employer today, with what they're doing, you know, we salute it, but I think it's a little bit maybe, how would I say, you should be a little bit shy in terms of taking the credit, in the sense that saying it's a priority is the health and safety of firefighters.
Earlier this year, the province linked 15 different kinds of cancer to firefighting. That resulted in automatic coverage for treatment for firefighters from the Workplace Safety Board.
It's a tough job, and firefighters, men and women, are both extremely brave for doing it. So kudos to them, and I hope they get their funding for some new equipment. In other news, we've got the Canadian military is now investing a Facebook group for abhorrent Facebook comments. Let's take a look at this.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Michael Wright called the posts abhorrent, saying he was disgusted by the content. Senior military brass say the posts in the group featured racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and anti-Semitic comments and images. Known as the Blue Hackle Mafia, the group was allegedly comprised of members of the Cameron Highlanders, an Ottawa-based reserve infantry unit. Wright ordered any military members in the group to leave immediately and warned anyone engaging in such behavior should expect consequences. Military police say they opened a new investigation into the group on June 27th, just 2 days after the Army commander found out about the Blue Hackle Mafia. This isn't the first time military police looked into the group. It was reported in December of 2024. But the head of the military police says the disciplinary investigation was handed over from military police officers to the Highlanders' own chain of command. There is no information on whether any charges were laid or if administrative or disciplinary action was taken. Mercedes Stevenson.
I mean, that's crazy. First of all, we don't have an example of what's going on. But second of all, just keep that thing internal. Like, why broadcast that? Why does that get out to the world? Like, hey, we have people in our platoon that are engaging in, you know, some not so nice comments on Facebook, and, you know, they've sent memes to each other, whatever it is. Like, I'm not defending it. I'm not attacking it. But it just seems like a weird story to be like, hey, there's guys in a platoon that are talking shit, probably inappropriate. I mean, a lot of group chats are probably freaking inappropriate, and now it's on the news. Like, what a waste of resources. Just keep that internally and stop wasting everybody's time. And speaking of wasting time, you've got Buffalo, New York is trying to lure back Canadian tourists. Apparently, they're hurting. Let's take a look at this.
A U.S. border city is hoping to win back Canadian tourists. That billboard that is now up next to one of Toronto's busiest highways. The message from Buffalo, New York is a response to Canadians boycotting travel to the U.S. because of the trade war and President Trump's 51st state rhetoric. Officials in Buffalo say Canadian visitors have meant as much as $1 billion for the city's economy. Thomas Diagba takes us there.
Hello from Buffalo, New York, on the shores of Lake Erie, directly across from Ontario's Niagara region. This is a city best known for its chicken wings and football, but for people from southern Ontario, this has long been a shopping and day trip destination. Not so much since Donald Trump's trade war. So the local tourism board here is reviving its campaign known as Buffalo Loves Canada to tell Canadians to come back.
In February, when tariff talks started, we pulled back on all of our advertising because we were getting some negative sentiment, obviously, and we thought this was an opportunity with Canada Day just to dip our toe a little bit into the market again and see what the sentiment is.
According to U.S. border officials, the number of travelers crossing from Ontario to this area of western New York has dropped 24% year over year. And officials here say border crossings never even fully recovered since the pandemic. So tourism operators like Buffalo Harbor Cruises are offering a 30% discount for Canadians to lure them back.
That's kind of funny.
Just show your Canadian ID.
You're our neighbor. You're right across the river. We share the border. We share the waterways. Every day we travel through a Canadian waterway. And we don't take that for granted.
The Toronto Blue Jays AAA baseball affiliate, the Buffalo Bisons, are also offering a 30% discount for Canadian tourists all summer. The message from local businesses that depend on tourists is they don't agree that Canada should be annexed by the United States, as their president has claimed. Instead, they just want people on both sides of the border to go back to getting along. Thomas.
You know, I've put more thought into this, and it wasn't too long ago when the trade war first took place, first kicked off, that I made the claim that there are no Canadians, man, that are boycotting America. Give me a break. Like, it's just not happening in the masses the way the media is reporting. Upon further review, I guess it is happening in the masses the way the media is reporting. Maybe to that extent, maybe beyond that extent, or maybe not quite to that extent, but it definitely is happening. I obviously have my bias, and I've got my circle, my algorithm, my circle of friends and family and stuff like that, and then my own social media algorithm that gives me things that it thinks I would be looking for. And it's obviously not liberal content. And so I've just been a little bit more leaning, my bias has been more leaning towards the fact that there's not really this boycott. But I did, I guess, overlook the fact that more than half of the voters in the country did vote for elbows up. And if the government says boycott America, those voters are likely going to boycott America. So it actually is happening, and it sucks that all these tensions are still going on. But I did just think of this right now as I was watching this video with you guys. What if American tourism that is saying, hey, Canada, we want you to come back, not because we love you as people per se, but because we want your money. How can America, and American companies and American tourism boards, how can they bring back Canadians? Well, maybe start flying the Canadian flag, offer Canadian food items like poutine and beaver tails or elephant ears. I know they go hand in hand depending on what part of the country you're from. Offer more Canadian things, because American things, I mean, the American flag was flown at City Hall in Ottawa for Freedom Day on the 4th. I mean, Canada is pretty, you know, we adopt a lot of American things, and America doesn't necessarily adopt a lot of Canadian things. So if you're looking for, you know, to incentivize Canadians to come back, maybe start flying the Canadian flag and just see how that goes. Again, not that I support the boycott, not that I support any of the trade wars, but just my opinion, folks. And I would absolutely love to know yours. Have you, by the way, participated in any form of a American boycott, like alcohol or other products at the grocery store, or just simply shopping in America, or even going to America for vacations? I personally haven't. I haven't gone out of my way to buy made in Canada products or Canadian alcohol or like none of that stuff. I haven't like noticeably gone out of my way. In fact, I do have a vacation with my family later on this year in America, and never once did it cross my mind to like cancel it because of this boycott. So again, I have my bias. I think the boycott is silly, but a lot of people are participating in that. Anyways, moving on to, since we are talking about America, let's take a look at Trump, who just had a call with Putin and said he's very disappointed with him because there hasn't been any progress.
We had a call. It was a pretty long call. We talked about a lot of things, including Iran. And we also talked about, as you know, the war with Ukraine. And I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy. No, I didn't make any progress with him today at all. I'm speaking to President Zelensky tomorrow, early in the morning. And, yeah, I'm very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin, because I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there. And I'm very disappointed. Well, it's not, I'm just saying, I don't think he's looking to stop. And that's too bad.
Безусловно, это мы очень внимательно относимся ко всем заявлениям президента Трампа. В ходе разговора президент Путин повторил, что мы заинтересованы в том, чтобы достичь наших целей в ходе специальных военных операций, и предпочтительно сделать это политико-дипломатическими средствами. Но пока это не представляется возможным, мы продолжаем наши специальные военные операции. Также президент информировал своего американского коллегу о том, что мы сейчас ожидаем согласования дат третьего раунда.
Oh, third round of direct talks with Ukraine. Okay. I mean, it does feel like this war needs to end, and it needs to end very quickly. This was one of the campaign promises by Trump. And I'm not trying to say, hey, why hasn't the war been stopped or a ceasefire has been agreed upon? Because war is very murky and messy, and it's very complicated. But I think that something needs to happen, because tensions every time there's like missiles that are fired, every time there's a military strategic move by a big country, it just feels like we're that much closer to the end, to World War III. And we all know that somebody somewhere is going to launch a nuclear, drop the big N, and it's going to be the end of a civilization or the end of a country. I don't know. I'm a little afraid of it. I try not to live in that fear, but it definitely is something to keep in the back of your mind, and I keep it in the back of my mind. Now let's move on to something that's not so scary, the Stampede. Political petting zoo is what's being referred to as the Calgary Stampede, as politicians gather to flip pancakes at the Stampede.
It's the calm before the storm as the final touches are being put on a celebration that will extend well beyond Stampede Park.
You can travel to another city while their event is going on and not know what's going on. That's not possible here. It is absolutely not possible.
The Stampede spirit can already be felt across the city, and this year's event has the potential to be bigger than ever before.
Ticket sales on both rodeo and evening show, year to date, we're outpacing last year's record year.
It's expected there could be more than 1.4 million visitors passing through the gates over the next 10 days, bringing with them millions of dollars for the local economy. According to a 2019 economic impact study done by the Conference Board of Canada, Alberta saw a $282 million economic gain during the 10-day event, with $227 million of that staying right here in Calgary. An updated study is being done this year, and the results will be available in the fall, but it's expected that impact has grown, with benefits being felt across all sectors.
Those numbers don't even account for the long-term deals that start with a handshake right here on the grounds and across the city.
And with politicians from all levels of government making the trip to Stampede, it's an opportunity for business leaders to get some face time with key decision makers.
If you're standing in a pancake breakfast lineup, and many of us do that, those conversations can go in so many different directions, and they can touch off interesting opportunities and responses to what needs to be looked at more carefully here.
This year's Stampede coming on the heels of the G7 and the Rotary International Convention, and kicking off more than 200 downtown festivals and events this summer, elevating Calgary's profile on the world stage as an elite event.
Man, I told myself last year, I think it was last year or the year prior, I think it was last year, that I was going to, no, it was the year prior, that I was going to go to the Calgary Stampede. And I was going to take my family, and it never worked out. The closest I got to the Calgary Stampede was the Williams Lake Stampede, which is not me laughing in a belittling way at the comparison, but it was, I think the Williams Lake Stampede is the biggest stampede in British Columbia, which I don't think is even remotely comparable to a fraction of what the Stampede offers in Calgary, since it's like the largest or one of the largest stampedes in the world. I've just never been able to make it out. I even now, this year, it's like, oh yeah, I told myself in 2025, I would take my family to the Stampede. And then here we are, the Stampede's happening. And it's like, oh crap, I missed it again. And so I don't know where I'm going with this, but if anybody has, I don't even know how the Stampede works in terms of tickets. Is it just general admission? Do you just sit on a bench and watch? Are there box tickets? Are there VIP things? I don't really know how it works, but I'm just throwing it out there. If anyone's got like spare box tickets, maybe I'll like take my family to the Stampede. I don't really know how it works, but I'm just going to throw it out there embarrassingly. Anyways, in other news, instead of me trying to get free tickets to the box of Stampede, if that's even a thing, let's take a look at Pierre Poilievre. Great to see Pierre and Anna Poilievre in Calgary last night, and great to see Pierre now representing my hometown of Camrose as Pierre makes his appearance with his cowboy belt buckle. You got Pierre in his hometown. Pierre now looks like a real sheriff. Look at that, man. It's like he was meant to be riding a horse downtown Calgary. That's pretty cool. And then Pierre himself posted these photos, thrilled to kick off the greatest outdoor show on earth for 2025 in my hometown of Oneida. A celebration. Oh, a hometown with Oneida, not hometown of Oneida. Of course, Oneida's his wife. Whoopsie. That was a... Oops, let's just pretend to maybe edit that one out. So you got him meeting some people there, shaking some hands, riding his horse downtown. That's so cool. I would have loved to see that. He's got a sheriff badge and everything. Freaking cool. And then you got Mark Carney. Mark Carney on the top. Just looks so weird. And then Pierre and his wife on the bottom there. And then Pierre, even though he is at the Stampede, he had this to say on X earlier this morning. No amount of spending on our brave men and women could be enough. The way to pay for it is by cutting other wasteful government spending, not another liberal tax hike. Yet Mark Carney's out of control spending, which is worse than Trudeau's, now threatens to further impoverish taxpayers. No new taxes. I couldn't agree more with that. And that is why it's so important for Pierre to get back in the House and do what he does best, which is politics and pressure. And then you had the Western Standard able to interview Pierre on a horse downtown Calgary, which is pretty freaking cool. Let's take a look at this.
Our pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
What's your name?
Jen Hodson from the Western Standard.
Right on.
Yeah.
How's your Stampede going?
Very fun so far. Yes, that would be great. Yeah, thank you. So we have Mr. Poilievre here on the horse. So you've been out here campaigning in Alberta in the riding that you're running for. Tell us about that.
It's been going great. We started in Drumheller on Canada Day, and we went up to Hanna, Donalda, Killam, Statler. We went up all the way to Camrose and a bunch of other wonderful communities in between. And people want to fight for oil and gas, for farming, for our soldiers in Wainwright. And it's so great to be back in my home province to fight for the values and the people that I love.
That's great to hear.
Dude, that's exactly it. The Liberal government is trying to, what? They're trying to ban the sale of gasoline-powered vehicles by the year 2030 or 2035. Like, that's insane. No. I mean, yeah, sure. Integrate EVs into society. Don't force it on people. If you want to get an EV, by all means, go and get it. If you want to get a gas-powered vehicle, by all means, go and get it. But that's what capitalism is all about, is it's the free market, and it's like, hey, it's there if you want it. But don't force it on people. It's just not working. In fact, it's imploding everywhere around the world. And we are sitting on so much oil and gas, man. Our price of oil shouldn't be $1.60 a liter, which is some of the prices on Vancouver Island, right? It should be 99 cents, 85 cents. Like it would just be awesome if it were to drop drastically in price, but that's not going to happen with a Liberal government. It definitely would likely happen with a Conservative, though.
What are you hearing from people when you knock on their doors?
Well, they want us to produce more of our oil and gas. Hardisty, which is in Battle River, Crowfoot, is probably the biggest energy hub in Canada, maybe in North America, and they could be pumping more oil into more pipelines if we could get them built. That's what something needs to happen. We need to repeal the gun laws, let people legally enjoy their property in a responsible way. They also want to lock up the repeat offenders. Rural crime is on the rise. People are, they're stealing copper wire, they're going onto people's farms in the middle of the night, stealing other property, and it's not safe like it used to be. So they want safety, freedom, and prosperity. And it's the greatest people. It's a community that feeds, powers, and protects the nation, and it would be an honor to represent those wonderful people in Canada's Parliament, God willing, if they should so choose.
Amazing. Great to hear.
Dude, I love the fact that he's doing an interview on a horse. He's not even looking where he's going. The horse just knows. That is freaking awesome. It definitely follows suit with the Alberta, the Alberta pride, basically, of being on horses and stuff like that. I love it. I love everything about it. Let me know down in the comments if you are attending the Calgary Stampede or if you want to, because I think that this is going to be a huge freaking event. When we look at even Pierre Poilievre showing up and, saying hi to people, it's not just on a horse. It's also in front of thousands of people at a stadium or at a concert. Here we go. Look at that. Mark Carney ain't getting that type of welcome. Yeah. Look at that, man. What a freaking incredible experience that is. Seeing thousands of people. It reminds me of a Pierre Poilievre rally. And there it is, right? You still have so much support for Pierre Poilievre. Even now, like the media wants you to think that he's polling at, all-time lows. And I've been guilty of, I don't want to say reporting on that, but including that in some of my videos. And it did feel for a while like the wind got taken out of our sails. And it probably didn't just feel that way. It probably was that way. But now that we're getting closer and closer to the by-election, and now that we've stopped Parliament for the summertime, the next time we see all the politicians back at their job is going to be September after the by-election. So we know that Pierre is 99.99999% going to be there. So the hype for Pierre is back, especially with him in Alberta, especially with the Stampede and everything happening. And it is freaking phenomenal. The only thing that Pierre is going to have some tricky waters to navigate is Alberta separatism, right? Like Pierre hasn't once talked about it, not that I've ever seen. And so how is Pierre going to manage this? Well, instead of taking a look at what Pierre has to say about it, let's take a look at what a Queen's professor says about Alberta separating.
I have been recommending if, and of course this is all based upon a big if, but if in fact Alberta got to the point of separating and becoming independent, my hope would be that they would create a new kind of governing system, that they wouldn't try to adapt the Westminster system, that they would say, look, the system that the Americans have is architecturally superior. Let's start with that. Let's start with the bare bones of the American system and then try to improve it. The American system has some flaws. Let's try and sit down and figure out what they are. Let's fix them and we'll move on. We'll leave behind the Canadian system that doesn't seem to work very well. I have been recommending.
I mean, that's very much true, right? Even the Canadian system being on the, the Westminster program, it just feels like it's a little outdated, and Canadians are starting to get a little fed up with it, but very specifically in Alberta. And to wrap up this entire video that is predominantly around Alberta, we got to talk about this bombshell video that Danielle Smith dropped about Alberta equalization and the fact that Albertans are pissed off and they're really ready to stick it to Ottawa. Here we go.
The Alberta Next panel is touring Alberta to hear from Albertans on how our province can better protect ourselves from Ottawa's economic attacks while building a more prosperous, strong, and sovereign Alberta within Canada. A provincial referendum on some of these ideas is coming in 2026. But what's on that referendum ballot and what happens next for Alberta is up to you. One idea being discussed by the panel is reforming federal equalization and transfers. Since 2005, Alberta taxpayers have contributed, on average, $23 billion more per year to the federal government in federal taxes than they received back in projects, benefits, and other spending from Ottawa. That's a net loss to Albertans of nearly $500 billion in just 20 years. Most of those redistributed Alberta tax dollars are spent by Ottawa and Quebec and other liberal-leaning provinces across the country. And part of that massive fiscal transfer out of Alberta comes through the Federal Equalization Program, which has seen Alberta pay over $67 billion into the program since 1957, while receiving back not a single penny since 1965. In 2021, Albertans voted in a referendum to remove equalization from the Constitution, but Ottawa completely ignored us. So what next? Alberta can't stop these federal transfers on its own. The Alberta government doesn't write a check to Ottawa each year, and we can't ask Albertans to stop paying their federal taxes. The fact is, fixing this problem will require political support from other provinces. One option that would be appealing to most other provinces is to have the provinces collect a larger share of overall taxes. This is how it could work. Currently, Ottawa collects over 60% of all the federal and provincial taxes that Canadians pay. The Ottawa bureaucracy takes its portion, with the remainder inefficiently and unequally distributed to the provinces. The dollars we do get back have a lot of strings attached, forcing us to run our provincial programs and build infrastructure the way Ottawa wants us to. No provinces want that, especially the big ones like Quebec, Ontario, BC, and Alberta. What if we cut out the middleman and instead had provincial governments that are responsible for delivering health, education, and social services collect around 60% of all taxes, with Ottawa receiving the rest? Ottawa, in turn, would be able to end most transfer programs to the provinces, along with all the strings, bureaucracy, and waste attached to them. Quebec has already proposed having the federal government let provinces keep GST revenue generated in their provinces in return for ending the federal health transfer. Seems like a great idea. Why not apply that same logic to all federal transfers? Less money collected and wasted in Ottawa. Less federal transfers with only a modest amount of equalization for the smallest provinces and territories that actually need it. And more funds for provincial health, education, and other programs, without strings attached by Ottawa's politicians and bureaucrats. That seems like something most provinces could rally behind. So what say you, Alberta? Should Alberta take a lead role in working with the other provinces to reform federal transfers and equalization by having the provinces collect a larger share of overall taxes, with Ottawa collecting less? And are there any other strategies Alberta should be looking at to alleviate the massive federal fiscal drain to Alberta? For more information, visit Alberta.
Yeah. Or how about equalization payments stop across the board and Alberta gets to keep all that money that they make and become one of the richest countries in the entire world? I mean, that's I feel like a lot of Albertans are pretty much on board with that. It'd be difficult at first, right? You got to create passports. You got to secure the borders around Canada, EU, and America. And you have to have your own international airports and like a whole new kind of system. But wow, the potential is very much there. And I feel like if equalization payments just stopped, then not only would Alberta prosper, but Quebec would drown. I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's just so funny to me that Quebec gets like 13 or 15 billion dollars a year from Alberta as an incentive to not separate. Like, there's no other reason, right? Quebec once tried separating, and the only way that they were able to stay was because the country said, you know what, Ottawa specifically said, you know what, we're just going to take that money from Alberta and we're going to give it to you. And they said, okay, we'll do that. But if the money ever stops, then we're for sure leaving. Well, then do it. Leave. And Alberta will leave too. And let's see how much money Quebec can make, and let's see how much money Alberta can make. I just love it. I love everything about it. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Again, I'm not from Alberta. At least not yet. I'm not living there yet. Maybe someday. I'm still trying to convince the wife on that one. But if you are from Alberta, or if you know people from Alberta, do you support the separatist movement? Do you support the Alberta Prosperity Project? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. That is the end of the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, it'd be super awesome if you guys take time right now, hit that like button, subscribe. Come on, just shut me up. Just do both of them. And I promise, maybe I'll shut up. Even though I made that promise to my wife and I still haven't shut up. And I'll see you guys in another video. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy the Calgary Stampede if you are there. Bye for now.